Hi, it's Paul Banis, the GreatDad.com, and thank you very much for joining either the podcast or the YouTube version of the podcast. I'd really appreciate it if you took just a second to subscribe either on your podcast app or in YouTube. It doesn't really do anything. It's not going to send you any emails. It's just going to show up more often on your feed, and it does me a lot of good in terms of getting more exposure for this work I do to support dads. I'd also like to invite you to come to my page, GreatDad.com/go, if you'd like to discuss more about any of the issues that we are covering within the podcast, especially if there's any way I can help you to be a sounding board in your own struggles to be a dad and to be there for your family. So take a look at that. It also includes a link to my course on gratitude, where at GreatDad.com/gratitude with a offer to take that course for free. So see you in a second. Hey, it's Paul Banis at GreatDad.com here with my weekly podcast talking about modern fatherhood. And we have a guest, Lane Igoudin. Make sure I've got that right, Lane.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did, Paul.
I practiced that a few times beforehand to talk to us a little bit about his experience as a dad. And he's got so many angles on fatherhood that I don't even know where to start. So maybe let's enumerate them. First of all, you're an adoptive parent. You've
Yes,
got and you've got two girls, which
correct.
isn't totally rare. I've got a boy and a girl, but that's not totally rare. But you also have a male partner, a husband,
Hmm.
and he is African American. You're white. Let's see, he comes from a different faith background, and you're Jewish.
Correct.
So you got a lot of things going on, and then your kids are Latino from in
Latino,
heritage.
white, and mixed race.
Yeah.
One of them.
Okay. So yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of things going on. So we could touch on all kinds of aspects here. But maybe let's start out with the fact that you got married now 20 no, 20 years or 20 years ago, 20 16 years.
Well, we got legally married in 2008, but we have been together for 27 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
So
you
we've
but you
been,
you adopted before you were actually married then,
um,
if your kids are 18 and
our second
20.
adoption was finalized shortly after our marriage was conducted, I should say. But most of our saga, most of our story took place before marriage equality. So which is from 2005 to 2008. So for pretty much most of it, we were two, like in the eyes of the federal government and to some degree the state government too, we were two unrelated adults, with no sort of
Right.
married connection between them, raising two related kids, because they're sisters.
Hmm.
And then once we got married in 2008, we ended up in sort of a legal limbo where we were a couple, a married couple in the state of California and a few other states which recognized our marriage, but we were no one to each other in the eyes of the federal government. And we were very active in the whole marriage equality and also part of this family pride movement. And everything we had to do back then, we did it. But I would say we went all the way up to the Judiciary Committee of the Senate, where we testified in support of the legislation which would have got rid of the Defense of Marriage Act.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, it didn't pass at the time, but then it passed 10 years later. So the one that just passed, just formally getting rid of DOMA. The very first reading was back in 2012, and I think it finally passed in 22.
Yeah.
But
It's
yes,
hard.
we were. Yeah.
Well, it's hard to believe that this was, kind of recent past. I mean, we're already into the 21st century, and you're still fighting these battles. People were still fighting these battles. I mean, I live in San Francisco, where this is kind of like,
Yeah, you're at the ground
we have
zero
so
of.
many gay friends that nobody differentiates. Nobody says, "Oh, that gay couple's
Right,
over." It's just that's just
right.
everybody's mixed up. But tell me a little bit about why it was important to you not only to get married, but at that same time to really fight this fight to have kids at the same time. Because
Yeah.
back in the early 2000s, I remember having a car ride with a gay friend of mine who had a child the same age as my son, and without being, I didn't want to be contentious. Didn't want to be insulting, but I said, like, this must be like a big commitment for you, like versus a straight couple. And not to say that straight couples like they should have the right to, but I like this must be like a huge decision that you had to go through to go through this process and take on a lifetime thing that
Mhm.
even living in San Francisco is not going to be easy. So talk a little bit about why it was important for you.
Well, first of all, you're bringing up an interesting topic. So I think there's a fundamental difference between um, a gay dad's decision to have a child and a
Mhm.
straight dad's decision, because
Mhm.
with a gay dad's decision, it's always planned.
Yeah, yeah,
As I
right,
write in my book, the child is always conceived in the
right.
mind. First, you want to
Oh,
have a
interesting.
child, then you have it.
Yeah,
With stray couples, sometimes it's planned, sometimes it isn't, sometimes it's an oops, right? So
right.
the things are, and that's one difference. And another difference is that up until recently, there was really no pressure on gay men to have children. And it was hard enough to even bring a partner into your family, but then like children, oi, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so that was so we were not really forced. And I would say up until late 1990s, when up until the late 1990s, if there was a child in a gay household, single or coupled, that child would have come from a straight marriage or a straight relationship prior to that.
Hmm.
It was not until then that the states really began to open their foster systems to gay individuals or couples, to take children in and foster them with the intention to adopt, which is what we did.
Yeah.
So we were part of the very first, I would say, out gay family generation. We're part of the first generation of out gay families, which really was early 2000s, but it also overlapped with a family equality. I mean, with a fight for equal rights. So if there had been families, gay families like ours, a bit earlier, but we were very much in the shadows, sort of like under the radar. But as the fight for equal rights intensified in the early 2000s, we were sort of brought into the spotlight too, because the whole argument that same-sex unions should not be allowed because of, save the children. Well, what are you talking about? They have children too, and their
Right. Yeah.
children grow up just, the children are fine. The
Yeah.
problem is not with the children. The problem is
Yeah.
with their attitude.
You're right. Well,
So,
they didn't know that then. I mean, I think those of us who are progressive knew that or we believed that, but
right.
there wasn't a lot of experience in it. But I love this angle because about what drove you because I guess in my work and trying to in supporting fathers,
Hmm.
one of the things that I desperately want to communicate is that men can be natural caregivers. Men can want
Yes.
kids as
Yes.
much or more than their partner. It's not something that's unique to women to want to have babies and to want to care for babies and to take
Right.
care of kids and to raise children. That's not something that's uniquely feminine or masculine.
I believe that any functioning adult can be a parent. And
Yeah.
in my personal experience, I was raised primarily by my grandparents, not by my father or mother. My parents divorced when I was little, and so I was raised by my grandparents. Um, let's stop because I forgot to charge my.
Okay. All right.
So when we became dads, we raised a 1-year-old and her sister, a newborn. So pretty much from infancy till adulthood, they're now 18 and 20. Okay.
Right.
And so we've gone through every single stage from the diapers through the toddler, the terrible twos, we've gone through all of that. Then through I really want to patent a T-shirt which says I survived my daughter's adolescence. I need that because that was a pretty challenging time
Yeah.
for us for a
Yeah.
few years. But we've gone through all of that as parents, and our kids, in my opinion, our kids are great. They're amazing, and we're still very much a tight family, even though at this point we're empty nesting. Our
Mm.
younger daughter just started college this summer.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's off at she's at UC Santa Barbara, and our older daughter lives not too far from us, and then we see her and we support her. So like we get together. So what I'm saying is we've gone through every single stage of parenting with I would say back in the day would be called mothering, except for we did it, and it was just the two of us.
Yeah.
We didn't have a
So
family to support us, so it was just the two of us. So I don't buy into the whole thing that it takes a woman to be a caretaker. Any functioning adult can be a caretaker. Any functioning adult can be a parent. So that to me the key word is functioning,
really,
because that's exactly what we're up against in our legal process, where we were sort of opposite to the not functioning or dysfunctional birth parents who
yeah. Well, I
continued
think that
to
I
to
think
to
that's
get their
important to
their own
notice.
lives together. Yeah.
In the same way that you chose to be a parent, some people should not choose. Some people should not choose to be a parent. Not that they're not functional adults or they couldn't be handle it emotionally, but they 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 either chose to be a parent. Well, like you said, out of an accident, or they chose to be a parent because that's what society told them they should do. But they
Right. Right.
really aren't the best suited to be parents. Whereas the fact that you were more intentional about it, and that I have a course about the intentional father, and I'm sure we're in alignment about how important that, for lack of a better word, it's kind of in the new speak, the intentionality part. But going into it, knowing that you're taking on this huge commitment and what that
Right.
means, especially for you, knowing you were going to have challenges along the way. You didn't just decide on a lark on a Saturday afternoon, hey, let's get a baby or two in the mix. You were going to go into it with eyes wide open and with a plan.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in terms of it, it's not just you can just go into the system and get a child. You know how long that process takes, and all that every single step you have to go through to get certified. And the parenting classes and all the live scan and fingerprinting and this and that and the home study. That took a year, really. So yeah, and you have to stay through it. But I wanted to tell you, Paul, I knew that I was gay very early on. But I also knew very early on, I would say probably around maybe when I was 10 or 11 or 12, that I wanted to be a father. I helped to raise my younger sister. She was young. She unfortunately she passed away, but she was 8 years younger than I
Mhm.
was. So I was always sort of like a second dad to her, and all the way into her adulthood. And the fact that she ended up living near us and she got married and we would see her a lot was because we're very, very, very connected. So to me, I mean, I always wanted to have a child or two, and I kind of saw myself, this is funny. Because I saw sometimes you have a vision of who you want to be or how you see yourself in the future, right? Like a prophecy. So my prophecy was that, Lane, you're going to be a single dad with two kids.
Yeah.
Well, all of that came true except not single.
Yeah.
Married, 27 years together, married. But I always wanted to be a father. I felt that I will never be complete if I do not have a child. And so in that sense, now that I'm in my 50s, I feel that in many ways my life has been fulfilled.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked a little bit about at the beginning about the role of a another sex person within the sphere in a gay
Yes, yes.
parenting relationship. And I've talked to other psychologists. This always comes off as potentially contentious, but I am interested in talking about it because I believe in the value of male and female role models, and I
Hmm.
think that is really important. They don't necessarily have to be a different sex
Yeah,
relationship, but
yeah.
how, or do you feel the same way? And how do you incorporate women into your sphere so your daughters
Into the
have,
fabric of a gay family,
yeah,
right?
that they have that perspective as well? Because I know my
Yeah.
my wife, she presents a different side, a different side to my kids. Sometimes it's the more in some cases more the more masculine side because she right now she's the one who's really she's got a full-time corporate job and I stayed at home with our kids. But they're
Right.
different. Women and men do think differently in a lot of ways. And so was that an aspect, or is that something you planned, or something that just happened naturally?
I can only speak from my experience, and
Right,
I'm not
right.
a what is it, a social psychologist and things like that. But in my experience, I would like to separate between the caretaking and
Yeah,
nurturing, which
right,
can be provided, like I said, by any
right. I
functioning
agree. Yeah,
adult,
right.
and learning sort of like learning the role, like the social role modeling for a child, where I think it is important for a boy to be exposed to be exposed to male role models, and for girls to be exposed to female role models. In our girls' childhood, first of all, like I said, my sister was alive for part of their childhood, but I would say, as I told you before, Paul, we are a gay couple. Who do you think our best friends are? Of course, we have gay friends, but most of our gay friends do not have children. For them, it was a choice not to have children. Now that the choice is available to them,
Hmm.
there aren't that. I mean, I would say of all of our friends, maybe only a couple of them decided to follow our route. So I would say the majority of our friends are either gay gay couples with children or women, straight women, some single, some married, but kind of strong women, straight women is what we tend to gravitate towards as friends, and especially because their children are usually about the same age as our
Right.
our kids, and our kids would grow up, playing, play dates, all these things. So I think our girls have been exposed to enough of this sort of like strong positive female influence. This is meaning like this is what it means to be a woman. This is what it means to be a woman
Hmm.
in this society. And I would also say within the Jewish, within the Jewish tradition, we have a tradition of strong women. And
Yeah.
because we raised our kids Jewish, in a conservative synagogue, so there was a strong sense of sisterhood that they've been exposed to, which I think was also important.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, yeah. So again, I would separate caretaking from modeling in a social sense.
Yeah. There are some studies that talk about the role of like roughhouse play. I don't know if there's an analog to that for women, but I quite often cite those studies because they show the value of male parenting and how we parent in a different way that can be complementary to women. And this is maybe does get into a little bit of the nurturing child rearing part, but
Mhm.
like men will they'll jump on the bed and they'll throw the kids around and everything, and but potentially the studies show that that's good for the socialization of the kids. They're able to experience a moment of what seems like risky, dangerous behavior, but in the comfort of their father's embrace. But women don't do that as much, and there are probably other things that women do that are like that men don't necessarily do as naturally.
Well, it would be hard for me to generalize, but again,
Right, right.
like in our family, I mean, it was, I'll give you, I mean, when it comes to, like I said, caretaking, anything, let's say physical, physiological, from the time they were babies, from the diaper changes, all the way through puberty, all the way until now. Literally yesterday, I was on the phone with our daughter, away on campus, and then she was, she said she got a cold, so we're discussing what she needs to get. And I'm kind of arranging, taking care of things. I'm very much sort of like hands-on Jewish mother when it comes to
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
to those aspects, but also kind of being a confidant. And I think this is where maybe more of my gay aspect comes in. But also I think my kids surprise me, because the kids are who they are. I am who I am. My husband is who,
Mhm.
but our kids they are who they are. And I noticed that from a very young age, our older daughter, I noticed that she has a lot of upper body strength. She's very competitive, and I'm like, it looks like she might be an athlete. And I
Mhm.
don't have a single athletic bone in my body. It's just not me. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
a writer. I have background in music, but it's just not me. But I noticed that she had it. And so we got her first into swimming lessons, and then we got her into water polo. She played water polo for 7 years. And even though she didn't stay in it, it gave her such incredible, I mean, I can't enumerate all the benefits of playing water polo, from being a competitive sport to teamwork, excellent physical exercise, but also for a young woman growing up to have this very healthy, body image,
Mhm.
self-image. It all came from there. And I would go, I would take her to practices, go to the games with her, and I'd be sitting there, and people are like, well, did you play water polo growing up? I said, what? you know
Right.
no, but this is her and this is me, and it's like, she has it in her. She wants, not that she's really more attuned to that than I am, and it's important to keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
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 So rough housing, I don't rough house, but I can see her rough housing.
That is very funny. Okay, so then the other angle on this is the whole racial aspect you have in the house. And
Mhm.
like I said before we started, I had this monthly meeting for dads or support group for dads of biracial kids because I find it's really a landmine. And if you have biracial kids, especially who are into adolescence and beyond, there are moments where, especially over the last 10 years, have become quite fraught with a lot of emotions. I mean, uh,
Absolutely.
because especially as a white person, uh, there was just for a while there, and still continuing on to some extent, this kind of like you are the enemy. You're not just the personification of the enemy, but you are clearly the enemy. So I
Yeah.
guess I'm I'm curious as to whether those issues have come up more frequently for you. Has that been an
Mm.
aspect that you've had to deal with, both in some version of conflict with your partner and then with the kids, and how you've navigated all that? And then I can show how
Yeah.
we talk about it.
Well, it's unfortunate that in some ways, that this ethos changed, because John and I met in the 90s and we were very much sort of products of the 90s, where
Yeah,
the idea of a global village,
yeah,
multiculturalism. I'm
yeah.
I'm citing all these terms which are now sort of like
I
out
know,
the
I
window.
know.
They're like, you're this, just go into your little corner and stay there. I don't buy into that. I'm sorry. I
Right,
just don't buy into that. I've always
right.
been fascinated with other cultures. John also kind of grew up with that. And so this is before we had kids, just when we met, considering that I'm coming from a Russian Jewish background. I actually came to this country as a refugee from the Soviet Union with my family, and you can probably hear some of my accent. That's where it's from, you know. Um, and John grew up in Central California on a farm.
Hmm.
Yes, yeah, he grew up in a rural sort of underprivileged rural situation, but with very strong sense of African American culture, which goes back to the South. So we had this sort of understanding that we're curious about the world, and whatever you want, whatever is important to you, for you to bring into the relationship, I will respect it, And so this predates the kids. So when we lived in the city, we would actually go to Glide Memorial, sometimes, and
Yeah,
sometimes I would insist because I just love the sound of gospel music, you know. And at the same time, we started keeping Shabbat and having Shabbat dinners, and then keeping Shabbat. That's also before the kids. So if John wants to put up a Christmas tree, it doesn't bother me. If
right.
kids help him put it up, it's a festive occasion. Sure, Christmas tree is Christmas tree, you know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I would take John would pick up kids from the Jewish school, and they had their bat mitzvahs, both of them. So it's always been interwoven. And our kids are Hispanic, white, and one of them is part mixed race. So and the thing is, we tried to bring in the Hispanic heritage as well. And living in
Yeah.
Long Beach, where we are, was helpful because literally down the street from where we live is Museum of Latin American Art. And they went to summer camps there, and we had them in Spanish classes. I mean, we tried to expose them as much as we could. Ultimately, I kind of noticed that I am more excited about it than they are. I'm just
Yeah.
being honest.
Right.
But they're now adults. They've been exposed. If they want to further their
Right.
connection to their Latina roots, they know where to go. They have the resources. But I also want to tell you, I want to bring in a whole different aspect to this, which is adoption.
Hmm.
And I strongly believe that for a child whose biological roots have been cut, okay, and that's what we're looking at. Our adoptions are closed adoptions. What we try to do, I like to use the metaphor, we try to graft them onto our family trees. We try
Hmm.
to graft them onto the trees of our cultures, onto our roots. So they would feel that they're not just sort of out there with a little bit of this. No, 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 no. Like, you are part of my community
Right. Yeah.
now. We raised our kids, as Jewish women of color, which is a kind of I mean, at the time of this was a kind of a new concept. It's not so new anymore.
Not that
I mean,
new in
there's a large
Israel.
part of
It's
my
not new.
community that is now people of color.
Right.
So they are Jewish women of color, and they're welcome. They're welcome as they are.
Yeah.
They also grew up with a strong sense of African American community, and John's family has been very much part of our family. So they know they're welcome. They know this is their family. This is their family. And so I think it's important to give them that. Instead of look for something somewhere else, start with yourself, honor your culture, respect
Mm.
your culture, and be proud to pass your culture to your kids. That's where I come from.
Wow, that is fraught with so much. I mean, I love the angle about in adoption. Our kids are not adopted, so I don't have the insight that you have into that part of the equation. But the fact that you're our family first, and you have this other part of you that is your background, your genetics and everything, and we're going to honor that in some way and bring it in and help you to understand that, so you understand where you came from the same way I could potentially understand that I'm Polish and some far off history. But the most important thing is that you're in our family, and the family root and our the thing that you have together as a family is the most important thing.
A sense of belonging, of safety, of security, that this is not going away.
Yeah.
This is not just us, but the extended family of friends, of support network, and of the communities that we raise you in.
Do you think not that you necessarily have the experience about this, but that because you do see kids who rebel against that. They say, you're my white family and you don't really get what it's like for me at all. And I'm sort of rejecting you because you'll never understand being white
Mhm.
people or whatever the group is. And I'm going to go with this other tribe that I identify with more. Do you think that's a function of
You know,
rebellion or
we
family
had a
or
lot of issues in the teenage years, especially with our older daughter.
yeah, okay.
And she fought us about it, just about anything, except she never complained about going to the Jewish school. I don't know what it was, donuts, I don't know, or sense of belonging,
Uh,
or being out with other kids, but without being like in a real school. You know what I mean? I don't know what it was, but she never fought with us over that. So we haven't really had that experience. Maybe I'm sure there are other families that where that would become the issue. We've had many other issues to deal with, but not that was never an issue. Exactly because maybe like, okay, well, which we're exposing you to this, we want you to feel welcome, and ultimately it's up to you, what you want to do with this when you grow up.
yeah, well, I think that love aspect, if at the end of the day they realize that you're not trying to foist something on them, but that it's part of the support network and the family that's so important.
But
That-
ultimately, whether you're adopted or not, straight or gay or whatever, isn't feeling that you are a part of some community that cares about you, isn't that really important? Isn't that what people look for? I know I've been looking for that to this day, in many different places. Like, is it, so yes, you're welcome here. Isn't that the message we all want to hear?
Well, yeah, I would think that the artificial constructs of whatever that definition of you,
Uh,
that has much less value than are you accepted in the place you happen to be, whether you're the only white person in a black community or the other way around. If those are the people who love you and who know you and care about you and accept you and all the rest, do you really want to be that other thing that,
I'll give you an example, and it's not in the book. It's not related to the book. We went to dinner the other day, and a friend of ours who is a gay, African American, a gay African American, is very active in the local chapter of American Legion.
yeah,
He's a veteran, and that's where he
that's
found
his thing. Yeah.
his supportive community. He's on the board. He's like, and he's like very much excited and involved in planning all the events. And I was like, first, like, well, that's probably not the first thing I would think about, but like, that's where you feel comfortable. Then good for you. Good for
Yeah.
you.
Right. Right. But did you have moments where one of the girls said to you, you just don't understand where I guess it's common for adolescents is like, Dad, you don't understand. Well,
Yes,
but
I did
but
hear
but
you don't understand, but it was more like you don't understand what I'm going through emotionally.
yeah,
And I would say, I don't. Can
yeah,
you teach me? Can you explain it to me so I would understand? Because I'm not you, and it's not just because I'm not female and I'm not a teenage female as the time was,
yeah.
but
Right.
because I'm just not you.
Right.
And different people go through this very differently. Your sister is going through the same thing in very different ways. So explain it to me. Tell me what I can do.
Yeah.
That's where I think that's sort of like the real parent-child relationship begins to play out,
Yeah, and I think we talked about this just briefly before we started, and maybe we go back over this to kind of close up. But is about mindful parenting or intentional parenting, however we want to describe it, in terms of how you navigate some of those conversations where, yeah, you don't understand what, even if it's just generationally, you don't understand, but how you react. Because one of the biggest lessons that I've learned with our kids is just don't try to pretend that you can teach them how they're going to live through their current situation, and their
Mhm.
opinions and their thoughts and their reactions to what the world is around them, whether you think they're being silly or overly vulnerable or whatever it is that you think, that doesn't really work very well when you're trying to continue this relationship with them, right? So you're talking about like pausing, making sure to pause, and that might be a
Yes,
big
yeah.
lesson that we can all, even if we're not learning it for the first time today, we can keep on repeating that.
Absolutely. I mean, try to resist the urge to check your phone or go over in your mind like an
Well,
upcoming
that,
work
yeah,
meeting or a shopping list when you are with your child. Be there, be there. Pause to notice those parenting moments, Be there as you chat with your child when you walk them to school or shop for new sneakers, just when you're watching on the playground, take your eyes off the phone and put your eyes on the child. you know,
yeah,
those moments are essential because they are like, this is your life as a parent. This is your life. This is your life
mm,
as a parent. So
yep,
pause. Another thing I already mentioned is build on your child's natural strengths and abilities. I mentioned this example about our daughter's, water polo, because it's easy to assume that they are like we are, and but they're not. They almost never are, So what are they good at? What are they naturally drawn to? What experiences will make them feel good about themselves? So that's another thing I would say. And then I would say, if you want to kind of be mindful about your parenting, notice what your kids bring up in you, because they can teach you a lot about yourself, you know, uh, get straight to your core. So maybe like, instead of being reactive and sort of emotional to what they throw at you, because they will, kind of like turn the lamp inwards, right? So what do you see? Why are you so angry, for example, or so tender or worried or joyful,
yeah,
through all
yeah.
this. And then maybe one last thing I would mention is that, you know, it's a great opportunity to be a kid again, so
Oh,
don't
sure, yeah,
pass up on that opportunity.
yeah,
Because by a certain age we tend to be set up in our ways, and sort of respond in predictable ways to situations. But ultimately, like, every experience is a new experience. So like, we live in Long Beach. I will never forget the first time taking our kids to the aquarium of the Pacific, which is not too far from us, and how excited they were, and like, like pointing like fish, fish,
yeah,
fish.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
wow, like, oh yeah, fish. I'm like, I'm
Right.
excited about it too. So I kind of feel like I've lived through my childhood at least, twice or two and a half times now. So it's great. It's great. It's
Yeah, we
great
we
all.
traveled a lot with our kids, and they people would always say, "Well, why are you bringing them along? They're, like 4 years old. They're not going to remember anything." And like, I don't bring them along necessarily because for them, I bring them along first of all because I love being with them, and second of all, like you say,
Yeah.
seeing something through their eyes is far more magical than seeing it through a 50-year old's eyes. So
Right.
it's
Right.
it's a great gift to be able to have that childhood wonder and be able to see that again. Well, Lane, I really enjoyed having this conversation with you, and a lot of just really frank insights about this, and as we all navigate this together, and trying to understand rather than trying to figure out where the differences are. It sounds like you and I share a little bit of the same generational perspective on the global community and the importance of how we all work together rather than separately. And right now I think that's not as much in vogue as it was during the 90s. But hopefully we'll get back to that because I like you think we're in a big global village, not in a big world full of separate little city states.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
So your book, why don't we just talk about that for a second? You can find it at Laneigudin.com. So we'll put that in the show notes, but it's LaneIgoudin.com. Talk just a second about what's in the book and why people should read it.
My book is called A Family Maybe, and it depicts our journey, and also kind of takes you also through the parenting takeaways from that journey. And in many ways, our book, I'm just telling you, it's in many ways it's a core drama because it kind of exposes the whole reality of children's courts and this and that, but also it's a kind of a heart. I mean, I don't know. People call it a heartwarming story, whatever. But it's a personal story. It's a personal story. It's called The Family Baby. It's published by a regular traditional press, which is called Hooligan Press, based at Portland State University. So you can find it on Amazon, on Bookshop. I really recommend Bookshop. If you'd like me to sign it for you, you can also get it off my website, and I'll be happy to send it to you, or send it. I can sign it for whoever you'd like to give it to. So yeah, if you have any questions, please reach out. I'm on social media at Lane Igoudin on Instagram, Facebook, and you can also find me through my website.
Yeah, I'm sure people always need to have more support, and in whatever world they're living in. And your experience has been really an interesting, with a lot of different angles on ways you've navigated. And if that helps even one person understand how they're doing it the best way they can, that's a great thing.
Yep, yep. I feel exactly the same. I feel exactly the same. If somebody can learn something from our experience and could also use it, internalize it, that would be great.
Yeah, great. Okay. Again, Paul Banis at GreatDad.com. You can find my coaching services at GreatDad.com/go, including the link to the monthly support group for dads of biracial kids, which there's just always a lot of discussions to be had in that area. So again, thanks a lot, Lane, for joining me. I'll
Thank
see you
you.
guys next
Thank you,
week.
Paul.
Stay strong.